Yo. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.
I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and Kyle back together for the first time since Kyle. I can't remember the last time you and I did a show that wasn't a live stream, at least. But hey, we do this show every single year. We kind of recap our best and worst misses, I guess you could say, from last year's fantasy football season. That's kind of what we do around here. We hold each other accountable. So, of course, this show had to come out.
We do it every year.
Yep.
Every year, we always go back and take a look at what are our best calls, but also because we're not that into ourselves. And, the only person around here that's really into himself is Swag Rich, but he doesn't get to do this show. We're going to talk about our misses too and really be transparent on where we were right and where we were wrong this year, and maybe a little bit of why that happened.
Yeah, 100%. And now I'll be the first one to say here, we had some really big hits. We had some big misses too, but definitely had some huge hits that hopefully you were able to capitalize on during your fantasy football season. Now, before we get into this list, we're going to go through here. I'll have timestamps down below for the best and worst sections, but we got a little bit of business, Kyle. First thing, I have in my possession, right behind me, a signed full-size helmet of Joey B, Joe Burr, the Tiger King, Joe Burrow, that we need to give away because that was our Super Bowl giveaway through Pristine Auction. A ton of people went through, signed up for free accounts using that referral code Headliners, and continue to do that, right? If we want to have more free things here this year, Kyle, keep signing up. Let's keep them happy.
All the giveaways, baby. All of them.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to keep these going all year long, so make sure you keep signing up for those free accounts. But let's go ahead and announce the winner here of the full-size Joe Burrow helmet. Now, they were randomly selected, and the winner is Jane Johnson.
Jane Johnson.
Congratulations. You got yourself a Joe Burrow helmet. Now, I'm going to be emailing you at your email address there to get your information so I can get it shipped out right away. Next, Kyle, we got to make sure we talk about our friends over at Manscaped, the sponsor of this show here once again in 2022. Now, it's not just ball trimmers. I know I got it right over my shoulder too. They're all empty bottles because I've used all of it, full disclosure. You got to get over there. It's not just ball trimmers, Kyle. They have lip balm now. They have everything you could possibly need. You can get fingernail clippers. You can get nose hair trimmers. You can get deodorant. You can get shampoo. Doesn't matter what it is.
I like their after shower body moisturizing spray.
Why are you only pointing to your nipples?
Because this is where I spray it. It keeps everything
directly.
really nice and soft. And then I hop on the sticks and we get pointed again.
I got you. Well, do us a favor. Head over to manscaped.com. Use the promo code Headliners at checkout. We're going to get you 20% off and free shipping. Find something there for your travel bag. You will definitely enjoy it. But now, Kyle, is the time that everybody's been waiting for. It's time, and we're going to, why start off in a negative light, right? We're always half glass full around here. So let's go ahead and start with our best calls of 2021 first. Now, the first name
the
we're going to...
best call is not going to be half glass full, but we will say glass half full.
Why not? I'm confused.
You said half glass full, not glass half full.
Kyle, people who watch this show know by now that I am not a master of the English language, and they know you aren't either. So
no, definitely not.
If it comes to name pronunciation, you're in trouble. So if that's what I said, I'm an idiot. You know what I meant. Let's start off here with the first guy. It's a running back, and somebody who I've already talked about in a show here recently. It's James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. He was in the draft guide, Kyle, as a sleeper. We loved ourselves some James Conner in the preseason. We're like, listen, if Kenyon Drake can do what he did in Arizona, we have an opportunity for James Conner to have himself a great year, especially where he was being drafted. He was running back 37 overall when it came to ADP for last season. Finished running back 7. He definitely, listen, I don't think any one of us were projecting that from James Conner, but he had himself another huge year. Let's see his stats here: 202 carries for 752 yards, 15 touchdowns on the ground, and then added in 37 receptions, 375 yards, and 3 touchdowns through the air. Finished RB7. Huge season, huge hit for James Conner.
Yeah, and we talked about it in the draft guide. Like we specifically put in there that even when Kenyon Drake struggled a couple of years ago, that Chase Edmonds was not like this guy that they were like, oh, take over, get all these touches, all these touches. We said all along that James Conner was going to get his. Now, it did end up helping that, Chase Edmonds missed a little bit of time. But even with that being said, James Conner was the go to guy when they got into the red zone. And that's really what helped propel him up into that category he was, because he was finding the end zone a lot.
A lot. I don't think any one of us had him pegged for 18 total touchdowns, but if you drafted him there in the mid rounds, you found yourself with an absolute gem. Next one up, and a lot of people, I'm going to beat him to the punch, Kyle, because we're going to say this name, and they're going to be like, "That's not fair. He got hurt. You can't call him a hit because he got hurt." Bullshit. Kyle, you have your beat button?
It's not on this computer. It's on the game.
Son of a, I would so let you hit it right now, because it's Raheem Mostert of the San Francisco 49ers. And the reason we're going to include him is because the entire reason we had him listed as a bust in the draft guide was around his availability, his injury concerns. So because he had those injury concerns, that's why we were telling everybody to avoid him. He only ended up playing 4 snaps this season. That is not ideal when it comes to a running back that was as an ADP of running back 26 overall. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy inside the top 30, somebody that you could have considered as a flex start from week to week. You didn't even get to use him because, once again, couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah, 100%. And this continues to be the same offense that we've seen from Kyle Shanahan for all these years, where he's rotating all these guys in and out and getting people touches and putting them in situations to win. And even going into next year, I think you're going to see the same thing, where it's guys just rotating consistently in and out. And I'm going to say if, because there's a lot of different reports out there about what's going to happen with the quarterback situation in San Francisco. If it's Trey Lance, I think we need to also incorporate that he's going to take some rushing yards away next year as well.
Sure, understood. I mean, I was looking at Trey Lance, and I believe it was week 16 he played. And even in that game, Elijah Mitchell still had like 23 total touches. So I'm hoping that if Elijah Mitchell is their man, they can commit to him here next season. Okay, what about a big one? This one's a big one. Kyle, you like big ones? Anyway, yeah, this may be one of the better calls we had all offseason. It's Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. And we've had this actually on YouTube, a free video on YouTube, one of our must-have wide receivers for last season. He was drafted as wide receiver 17 overall, finished obviously wide receiver 1, had himself a huge year, almost 2,000 yards receiving, 16 touchdowns. The guy could not be stopped and was great with Matthew Stafford. Now, I love that call worked out, and I'm just hoping that a lot of people you benefited from this one, because a lot of people coming into the season were like, what's Robert Woods going to be like? And then Robert Woods ended up getting hurt, and a lot of people liked Van Jefferson, and it doesn't matter who's on that team. Cooper Kupp is the man with Matthew Stafford.
I think there was one thing that we were right on, because the reason that I believe you had him listed there was volume, right? The thought is that he was just going to get peppered, and Robert Woods might be the more of the big play guy, and he might take, some of those bigger plays away, but Cooper Kupp was going to get a lot of volume, but he did everything: big plays, volume, scoring touchdowns. I mean, really, this could go down as the single greatest receiving season of all time. Just barely missed the mark of most receiving yards of all time. So yeah, I mean, going into next year, it's going to be interesting to see Bobby Trees. Does he come back healthy? Do they re-sign OBJ? And if they do, when does he end up coming back? But we know for this past season, Cooper Kupp just absolutely dominated it.
He did.
Hopefully people spent a pick on him.
Yeah, exactly. You got yourself a steal for sure. Next one up, another wide receiver. And I remember numerous shows, both you and myself, we told the people, we're talking to the community here. We told everybody, listen, this year, based off of ADP, we're going full Mooney, because we liked ourselves some Darnell Mooney in Chicago. Now, his teammate we'll get to here in just a little bit. Don't worry, yes, he's in this show. But Darnell Mooney, somebody who was drafted as a wide receiver 51 overall, finished as wide receiver 26, so well outperformed his ADP. We talked about it in a YouTube Sleepers video here, another free video that everybody saw this offseason. Ended up 81 receptions for 1,055 yards and 4 touchdowns. Did he set the world on fire? No, he didn't. but he outperformed his teammate, which we will talk about here soon. And he was definitely somebody who at times was flex worthy. Maybe you play 3 wide receivers. He was their number 1 option in the passing game there in Chicago and definitely outperformed his ADP.
Yeah, I think, one thing that we saw from Darnell Mooney was just a connection with Justin Fields. I don't think anybody ended up seeing happening. Now, before the season, it really was, how long is Andy Dalton going to be the starter for? When does Fields take over?
Right.
Either way it goes, these guys are going to be playing with the best quarterback that they've had in quite some time. And that was really one of the reasons why we were like, okay, we think this is a sleeper, a breakout candidate for this year. And there could have been some more consistency, but it's going to be interesting to see what goes into next year when Justin Fields is the full-time starter and maybe no more Allen Robinson.
Yep, exactly. He is due to be a free agent. Next up, maybe a not so well name, a known name anyway. A lot of people may have paid attention slightly to Darrell Williams. We talked a lot about Darrell Williams here this offseason because we're like, listen, even though we expect CEH to improve, if anything happens to CEH, who is not known for being the most reliable guy, Darrell Williams is going to have a role in this offense in Kansas City. Now, he benefited from CEH missing some time. He was drafted as running back 59 and ended up finishing as running back 18 overall. So you drafted a guy late in your drafts, maybe you handcuff CEH, and you ended up getting yourself a running back 2, Kyle. I mean, the guy finished with 558 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns on the ground, and then added another 47 receptions, 452 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. Darrell Williams was a huge surprise and another hit.
He was, and it's going to be interesting to see, what does that do for CEH for next year? Because as of right now, CEH really hasn't kind of jumped out to really hold on to that first round value that he had from a couple of years ago when he was picked. So are we going to see more of a tandem coming up this next year for them? Bringing Darrell Williams back was something that, we kind of rooted for when you and I kind of talked about it. It was like, it'd be nice to see them re-sign Darrell Williams because of how well he kind of complements that offense. Yep. He's not going to be a guy that you draft that's going to be an every week starter, but definitely a guy when you look at the change of pace, maybe of a game that you could throw in there, or when you drafted him, if CEH were to go down, then you could put him in as like an RB2, and that's really where he helped benefit people.
Ton of value right there. What about Miles Sanders? Loved Miles Sanders a couple years ago. This past year, I was like, hell nah. I don't want any part of that experiment here. We had him as a must avoid on YouTube here. He was drafted as running back 20 overall, finished as running back 41, had 137 carries for only 754 yards, no touchdowns on the ground, had 26 receptions for 158 yards through the air, but once again, no touchdowns on the season overall for Miles Sanders. If you watched us at all last year, you know I was very critical of Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm pretty sure that guy's a real-life idiot because he did not know what he was doing. I mean, I have played Madden for 20 years.
Are him and Eli splitting that box of crayons?
He's definitely munching on some Crayolas at some point because I have no idea what he was trying to accomplish. It looked at times like he was just throwing Jalen Hurts to the wolves. He wasn't committed to any running backs in the backfield. It looked strange for a lot of the year. So Miles Sanders, talent-wise, I think the guy's a running back too. I like Miles Sanders for sure. The spot that he's in, I don't see him coming off this avoid list anytime soon.
No, and that's the whole thing. Like when Miles Sanders came out in the draft, we loved Miles Sanders. The talent is there. The guy is definitely somebody that can do a little bit of everything in the game. But he just plays for a team that's unwilling to do it. And you could see that last year. And I know a lot of people kind of laughed at us when we talked about it, but we said, look at they brought in Kerryon Johnson, they brought back Jordan Howard. It was just like they were trying to sign every single low tier free agent on the market to come in at running back. And we said, yeah, it's probably not going to hurt Miles Sanders, but it does show us that this team doesn't feel 100% committed and doesn't trust Miles Sanders 100%. And that was one of the reasons we were so scared.
Yep, I agree. And same thing can be said about the next guy here on the list. Another guy that we had as an avoid here on YouTube in a must avoid video. It's Kenny Golladay of the New York Giants. Now, I love Kenny Golladay overall, talent-wise, I mean, the dude is a freak of nature. Are you pop locking and dropping it over there? I mean, you pouring one out for
The
Kenny?
chair just gave out.
That's what she said.
I just told you too, right before the video started, I need to get a new chair.
Yeah, you definitely pop locked and dropped it there for a second. Anyway.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
We're good for now. It'll go down again at some point. Kenny Golladay. Now, love the potential of Kenny Golladay. Hated the landing spot in New York because they've proven for years that doesn't matter what they have, they can't really put it all together. And neither one of us were totally bought in on Daniel Jones. So we had him as a must avoid. He was drafted as a wide receiver 29, finished as wide receiver 81. This dude only had 37 receptions for 521 yards and no touchdowns. I mean, we had him as an avoid. He absolutely tanked for a lot of teams. So hopefully you listened. Hopefully you didn't have a whole lot of Kenny Golladay.
Yeah, I mean, I think with him too, it was the ADP that we were kind of worried about. Where he was going, we were like, do we trust Daniel Jones? Do we trust this offense? Not Joe Judge fans to get the job done.
We know they
had
drafted
to build
Kadarius
a connection.
Toney.
Yeah, Kadarius Toney. So there was just so many things happening there. One thing we did talk about, he ended up getting hurt and didn't play, but Sterling Shepard was a guy that we were really high on coming out of the slot. That worked for a majority of the season. So I'm going to give us a half a hit on that one. But
we get a full hit because we said to avoid him, Kyle. We get the full
Sterling
hit.
Shepard?
Oh, not Sterling Shepard.
No, Sterling Shepard, we said at his ADP was great. So I'm giving us half a hit for Sterling Shepard.
Just ignore me.
Full hit for saying not to draft Kenny Golladay. But, it was the ADP. It was like, if he falls a little bit lower and like maybe wide receiver 5, you could take a shot. But honestly, I think it was Giants fans that were pushing his ADP up.
100%. They were drinking the Kool-Aid over there. But let's end it here with one more huge hit. And then we're going to talk about some of the misses. Another big hit. He was on a YouTube free video. Have you noticed that a lot of these are just on basic YouTube videos? You may want to be subscribed to the channel. I'm just saying.
Watch the videos.
Yeah, just hit that bell notification because there was a lot of good information that you missed last offseason if you weren't here. Deebo Samuel, we had listed in a YouTube bounce back video saying, hey, listen, this guy has an opportunity to go crazy this year. Did we expect what we saw? Probably not exactly. No, 100% no. But we expected a bounce back year. Not expecting almost 1,800 yards there. Had 77 receptions for 1,400 yards and 6 touchdowns through the air. Added in 59 carries for 365 and 8 touchdowns on the ground. That was not what we were expecting at all. But Deebo Samuel paid off huge dividends for those who drafted him because he was in the draft ADP wide receiver 36. Ended up finishing as wide receiver 3 overall.
The biggest thing on the breakout when we talked about in that video, or not breakout, breakdown, the breakdown of it was that Deebo Samuel can be used in so many different ways in that offense. Because one of the points that I kind of worked through was when you take a look at his yards per target and his yards per reception and after the contact, he was a guy that when he was making those plays at or behind the line of scrimmage, he was picking up yards and he was working for those yards. He's knocking guys down. He's picking up those extra yards. And you saw that when they started to use him in the run game, he was a tough runner. When he gets the ball in his hands, it is hard to bring him down. So the whole point of saying, will he bounce back? It was a yes, because he's not used in the same way Brandon Ayuk is used. So those two were able to coexist. Now, Ayuk finding his way to the doghouse for some reason to begin the year may have helped just a little bit, but Deebo down the stretch, even when Ayuk was playing well and playing better, Deebo was still amazing.
Yeah, he absolutely crushed it. Very fun to watch. And now he's called a what? A wide back?
Wide back.
Is that what his new?
Like
you can call him a wide back or a running receiver, whatever you want to talk.
I got a wide back.
No
Side.
comment. No comment. Okay.
We have one more. I think we need to add in one more hit.
Oh, so you're adding something to the list.
I'm adding something to the list. He wasn't in any specific video. He wasn't in any specific portion of the draft guide, but I don't know how many times we said this past year. Zach Moss sucks.
You're exactly right. We have said that
Hit, baby.
I didn't include it because it was never formed like you said, but yeah, Zach Moss, we've been saying he sucks.
And look
for a
at
while.
damn it, Devin, at the end of the season, just looking
Devin.
like an absolute stud.
Love it. Love it. Their end of season. Okay. Well, now it's time to eat a little bit of humble pie, Kyle, because as good as those calls were, we had some bad ones. First one, it's bad. Not horrible, but it's bad for the first one here. It's Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins. Had him as a must-have running back. Now, you have to remember, when we say things are players are must-have or must-avoid, it's always based off of ADP, right? It's always based off of ADP. Well, at the time, Myles Gaskin was going at running back 21, and we thought that he was a smash to surpass running back 21. That did not happen in Miami. He finished as running back 27, though. So it's not like he was way off, but he didn't help a whole lot of people here this year. 173 carries for 612 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Did add 49 receptions for 239 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air, which really kind of bumped his numbers up to get him at that running back 27. Because he just wasn't committed to consistently in Miami. They were constantly cycling through running backs, and he never got the full opportunity. He would go out there, average 5 yards a carry one week, and then you wouldn't even see him the next week, and that just led to his demise in 2021.
And that's really part of the reason he ended up being a miss, was just because, and here's the thing too, it wasn't like they were doing this shuffling of running backs because somebody was performing better. Because they weren't. I mean, Duke Johnson showed up at the end of the year and did a little something. But throughout the year, like you said, Myles Gaskin would have like a huge game and we'd be like, all right, finally, Myles Gaskin time. Yep. And then the next week he'd go out and he'd get 0 fantasy points because he just wasn't used. He'd maybe get 5 touches. There was just no explanation for his usage. And that, like, Myles Gaskin is the perfect example of just all the thought process was right with Myles Gaskin, because even on a per touch basis, he still wasn't that bad, which was kind of what that research was based around. But they just inexplicably just would just have him disappear for weeks at a time.
I'll be the first to admit here, I kind of had him pegged for right around 225 carries or so coming into the season. Given that extra 50 carries on the ground, he very easily could have surpassed running back 21. Didn't happen, though. He was a miss along with this guy. We talked about his teammate a little bit.
This earlier. Was a big one.
This is a big miss. However, I'm not going to be light on us because everybody pretty much missed on Allen Robinson. But we were somebody that came out and said, hey, he's got to be a must-have for you this year. He's going to have the best quarterback he's ever had. He's gone from Blake Bortles to Mitch Trubisky. Now he's going to get Andy Dalton or Justin Fields. He's going to improve. What we did not know is that Allen Robinson and the Chicago Bears behind the scenes really don't like each other too much. And I watched an interview earlier where Allen Robinson said he didn't even talk to his head coach for like 6 or 7 months in the offseason. Once they franchise tagged him, they basically just, made him know that he wasn't really a part of the future, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me when you're paying a guy that much money, but it was apparent. He was drafted as wide receiver 11 overall, finished as wide receiver 88. Only 38 receptions for 410 yards and 1 touchdown. He was a huge miss. I loved me some Allen Robinson coming into the season. It just did not turn out. Does that mean that I hate Allen Robinson here this year? He's a free agent, so it depends where he lands. He could definitely bounce back. He's still a talented wide receiver. It's not like he's fallen off completely.
Yeah, and the one thing that bothered me a little bit about Allen Robinson this year, and now that we're into the off season and we hear a little bit more about the friction, and I mean, he's even like subtweeting them like consistently right now.
And there's no more Matt Nagy. So, I mean,
yeah.
What does that tell you?
The one thing is that it really felt like Allen Robinson quit. At times when you watched him on the field, it really looked like he was quitting on certain plays, wasn't really getting his best effort. And do I blame him? No-ish. I mean, you don't like to see it, and I don't love it, but you get franchise tagged, and they don't like have that contract extension talk with you. And really, yeah, they bet on him when he was coming off that ACL, but he's come in and he's absolutely balled out and performed with them since he's been in Chicago. They were in a season where Matt Nagy's job is on the line. and they just didn't really utilize him because even at the beginning of the season, it was like, why aren't you getting the ball to Robinson more consistently? So I understand why. It's just that whole situation just ended up being.
Yep, absolutely. That's all you can really say about it. It just did not work out this past season, and neither did the next guy. When we're talking about it's all about ADP, at the time in the preseason, Mike Davis was a guy that just screamed value because there wasn't any other option in Atlanta. At the time, we had no idea that Cordero Patterson was going to turn into like the best weapon in the NFL. But even when Mike Davis got an opportunity, he didn't do anything with it. They weren't committed to him in volume. Cordero Patterson took a lot of the pass catching work out of the backfield. And even though we kind of had Mike Davis pegged for a low end running back 2, right where he was drafted at running back 22, finished at running back 35 and was barely even fantasy useful for most of the season.
Yeah, the biggest thing here is Cordero Patterson, right? That is really what absolutely kind of blew up this Mike Davis call. And we've seen this experiment with Cordero Patterson before, right? We've seen it with the Bears, we've seen it with the Patriots,
the Vikings,
where they've tried to like use him as that like in this hybrid type role. It's never worked. So for it all of a sudden to work with the Falcons of all teams,
yeah,
just didn't see it coming. And now he ends up breaking out. And, after the first couple of weeks in the waiver wire videos, we were like, yeah. You got to go get Cordero Patterson. Like you have got to get him. You've got to get him in your lineup. This is the guy that's performing right now. So, I mean, yeah, we bite the bullet on Mike Davis 100%. That was not a great call, but there was somebody there that wasn't drafted to help make up for it. So if you drafted Mike Davis and again, work the waiver wire and you pay attention, hopefully you're able to get Cordero Patterson to kind of help you with that because he wasn't drafted in a lot of leagues.
Or better case scenario, if you took Mike Davis off of our advice, hopefully maybe you took James Conner a few rounds later and it didn't hurt you as bad because Conner was definitely after Mike Davis. Next up, a big miss here at the wide receiver position, Deontay Johnson. And a lot of this has to do, it was in a must-avoid video here on YouTube, with Juju going down. I mean, I don't think that going into the season that we were expecting Juju Smith-Schuster to miss as much time as he did. It led to Deontay Johnson finishing at wide receiver 8, where he was drafted at wide receiver 21, ended with 107 receptions, 1,161 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Definitely a miss for us, but another one of those situations where when things happen with certain teams, other players are going to benefit from it. And once again, Deontay Johnson was that guy here for the Steelers.
Yeah, and so Deontay Johnson definitely was one of my videos, and the explanation of the video was I like the talent. I think he's definitely a guy that plays very, very well. And what the Pittsburgh Steelers do, his strengths fit that. But there was 3 main factors that were an issue for me. Number one, you already mentioned it, Juju coming back. What was the offense going to look like now, knowing that Juju was going to be back in the fold? Claypool, potential second-year breakout, drafting Najee Harris. Are they going to go to more of a run-heavy game? Yep. Number 2 was Ben Roethlisberger. How long was that, those rubber bands and those paper clips in his elbow going to stay intact before it fell off? Okay, that was the other one. Number 3 were the plentiful, including league-leading drops from the season before. Could he clean that up? So for me, it was like in the area that he's being taken, I don't know if I want to risk it because there's 3 factors here that really worry me. And that's why I want to go ahead and get past him. Now, ended up playing just well. Again, some of those strengths that he has really works with that Steelers offense. So they were able to incorporate that and keep the volume up, which is really what kind of propelled him up here. We'll see what happens at quarterback now. As of right now, they haven't improved the offensive line. Juju was only on a 1-year deal. Does he end up coming back again? We don't know that. And who is the quarterback going to be?
That's the biggest question. If it's Mason Rudolph, I'm out on everybody there. That's not named Najee Harris. And then we'll round it out here. Last guy
a football helmet better than he does a ball.
Yes, he does. Okay.
Oh, wait. Who swung the helmet? Was it Myles Garrett that swung
Myles
it at
Garrett
him?
At Mason Rudolph.
I got it backwards.
I mean, listen, I said cup before, half full cup, whatever I said earlier. Whatever.
Half cup full.
Yeah, half cup full. All right, last guy we're going to end up here with our another worst calls of 2021. It's going to be Leonard Fournette of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He was in a YouTube must-avoid video. He was drafted as running back 33. He finished as running back 5. 180 carries for 812 yards, 8 touchdowns on the ground, 69 receptions. Nice. Way to go, Lenny. With 454 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns through the air. A lot of this has to do with all the injuries that Tampa Bay, racked up throughout the year. It really boosted the pass catching numbers. We know that Tom Brady always wants to have somebody to check down to, but he didn't have Gio Bernard at times. I mean, it didn't take long for Rojo to find the doghouse. Leonard Fournette was basically the bell cow for the most part this year for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and that's why he finished so high.
Yeah, it again, it's just one of those situations when we sat down and evaluated it and looked through it. Is there far more risk than there is reward? And yeah, Fournette was great to end the season, but what people forgot last year was that Ronald Jones was banged up to end the season last year. So that recency bias was really pushing people towards Leonard Fournette. Mm-hmm. But we knew Ronald Jones was coming back and healthy. And even though Say No to Rojo has been a long-standing tradition on this channel, over the last couple of years, it's kind of been, say maybe to Rojo. He could potentially help you out in some areas. So, he's coming back. They signed Giovanni Bernard. They still have Keyshawn Vaughn on their roster. This is going to be a high-powered receiving team because Antonio Brown is going to be back, even if it was short-lived. He was going to be, he was going to be with the team for a full year. My God, there were so many things about it that were like, can he really be a guy that you can, go with consistently on a weekly basis? And somehow he ended up pulling it off. So I don't know. I honestly still don't know how. I honestly still don't know how he had such a great season, just because everything in the offseason pointed it to being way more inconsistent.
Yep. I mean, the stars just aligned for Leonard Fournette, and because of it, he ended up being a miss for us. But, I look back at it, and obviously it's always good to reflect on, how you evaluate things, because now we can take all of what we learned in 2021, apply it to 2022, and try to do it all over again. Now, obviously, we're never going to be 100% correct. Newsflash, right? I would love to be 100% correct, but if we were, we'd be in Vegas and we'd be rolling, Kyle, because we would know everything that was going to happen. But we do our best to try to nail as much as possible, and I'm proud of some of the big calls that we had here this year. I mean, we nailed some big name guys that weren't expected to finish as high as they did. So kudos to you. I'm gonna pat myself on the back a little bit. You can pat my back. There you go. Appreciate it. Anyway, we're going to continue to do this, though. This is always fun to do. We do this every single week in season. We'll go back and say who were our best and worst calls, but we do like to wrap it up here and just kind of highlight the top guys from each category. So if you like that type of content, make sure you hit the like button, because I kind of like doing shows with Kyle every once in a while. It kind of gives us an excuse to do a show together and not separately.
I mean, give the people what they want.
Is this what the people want?
They have asked for us to do more shows in season together. Just unfortunately, we only get 24 hours in a day.
Yeah, there's only so many hours in a day, and there's so many videos to put out in those days. But if you enjoy this type of content, do us a favor, hit the like button. It greatly helps us out here on YouTube more than you know, especially here in the off season when nobody's really watching fantasy football content. But that doesn't mean that we stop making the content that a few of you out there are really looking for. We want to make sure we supply you with your needs all 12 months of the year. But it was fun, Kyle. We'll do it again next year. We'll continue to do it every year that this channel is around. I'm getting a little bit older, but if I'm 65 and I'm still sitting in this chair, I will continue to talk about my hits and misses, Kyle, because that's just the type of guys that we are.
I mean, that's only a few years from now. So
on that note, we're going to go ahead and head out for the day, and I'm going to fire Kyle. So do me a favor. Like I said, hit that like button. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. We greatly appreciate that support. And once again, it's the off season. If we helped you at all throughout this past regular season, and you want to just show a little bit of love and support, there's always that join button down below. Hit it so we can get you a few extra bonus shows, from time and again. Plus, don't forget to check out the podcast. Me and Kyle have hopped on the podcast, and we have started to. If you had the beep button, I would let you use it again. We've been tearing up over there. So make sure you check out our podcast. Having a lot of fun with that as well. But hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week. And for myself and Kyle, we'll talk to you later.